Welcome back to Creant Critiques. In this segment, we're going to take a look at some more of your art, and we'll share some tips and tricks for how we can improve as artists and a couple of different techniques as to what I do to achieve the results. First of all, though, I want to thank everybody who submitted their art for consideration today. If you would like to see your art on this program, you can submit it on r/CreantWorld on Reddit using the flair Creant Critique. Now let's go ahead and jump into the review. Our first piece comes from Charlie_my_cat, who's asking about line weight. They've provided this piece here of this ranger girl who's celebrating with her bow. And first of all, you do have some decent line weight already in here. It looks like you do have some variation, particularly in the wrinkles and everything. So you're very much on the right track here. I think you just need to push it just a little bit further in order to be able to get the expressiveness that I think you're looking for. So what I've done is I've gone around the outside of the character and I've increased the outline around the outside just a little bit so as to define the space a little better. And a technique that I like to use when I'm inking is I like to try to convey shadows using the lines. So that will inform how I establish the shadows on the piece also. So if we jump in and take a closer look at the details here, what I do is I go through and I add more line weight to areas where I feel there should be shadows and less where there should be highlights. And I like to do this technique whether I'm doing it digitally or traditionally. I do this for traditional art also. I take a number 5 brush, or if I'm using a fine liner, I use Micron number 5 drafting pen. And what I'll do is I go in to the area and I just kind of lay down multiple layers. Obviously, you could do this also with an expressive brush, like a calligraphy brush or something like that. But I just lay down multiple layers, tracing over the same line. Now, because my hand does shake a little bit, and because my tablet picks up on that, it actually adds a little bit of line expressiveness. It doesn't make it as clean as if I had a calligraphy brush here. But what it does do is it gives it sort of a more organic feel, which is actually something I really like when I do my artwork. When I'm going in, I'm thinking about ways that I can darken lines and really kind of use lines as a shape more than just as a stroke. And that way I can really add in some accentuation on the shape of figure that I'm drawing. And it also allows me the opportunity to kind of put down some ideas as to where I want the shadows on the piece to be. So I really hope that helped you. Thank you so much for your submission, and keep up the good work. Our next piece comes from Fox Gladium, who's asking about character design and about color balance for the character design. So with our piece here, Tesla the horse, she's got this sort of blue sash below the waist, and it immediately draws our attention to it because it's an area of high contrast. Effectively, this character has primary colors as her main color scheme. She's got sort of the yellows for the beiges for the kung fu outfit she's wearing. She's got the red for the sash, and there's red in her skin tone. And that's the only area that really has a vibrant blue. Her eyes are blue also, but the vibrant blue for the sash really draws the attention directly to it. Now, this is actually a good thing if you want to draw attention to a specific area on a character. You make that area of high contrast or using complementary colors, and it will draw the attention directly there. With this particular piece, I'm not sure that it works because it throws the balance off, in my opinion. It makes the piece very bottom heavy because it draws the eye immediately to the bottom half of the character. So I've come up with a couple of different options for how this could be changed. Keeping the same sort of color scheme, here I've decided to use a red sash and keep everything in those warm tones. And you see that it balances very well because you have the red of the skin tone and then the red of the sash, so the top and the bottom seem to be equally weighted. This is a design that would work if you're looking to have more of a warm feel to the character. We also have an option where I've added some more blue to the top part. I've just changed the character's eye color to make it more blue. I added a little bit of blue to bandages on the character, the tie on the ponytail. And you can see here again, the red sort of divides the character in half, since the red at the sash is right about at the midpoint of the character. But this way, you have a little bit of blue on top and a little bit of blue on the bottom, and it balances the character. Blue is actually an excellent choice here because it does create that high contrast because it is a cool color where everything else is warm. Just to illustrate that, I created one more that has high contrast just to illustrate the point that it really draws your attention. Now here you'll notice I didn't use very much of that high contrast color. I changed the character's eye color to green, changed one of the badges to blue, and the hair strap is purple. But the eye is immediately drawn to the highest area of contrast, namely to the green eyes on the red skin. That draws your eye directly to the character's face. Immediately after that, you'd probably notice the blue bandage, which again has that high contrast because of the blue and the red. It's a cold color versus a warm color, and it immediately draws your attention where you want it to go. Now, the purple is actually harder to notice because purple is an analogous color with red. It has red in it as well as being next to it on the color wheel. This creates a color harmony, which we'll talk about more in a little bit, but it also makes it more difficult to notice the difference. So this is actually a good way to work in some cooler colors and be more subtle with it if you want to go that route. You can add in some purples or you could add in some oranges, and they would both work quite well with the red because they sit next to it on the color wheel. So I hope this has helped you. You're doing a great job with your character design. I hope that you'll carry on, and I'd love to see what the finished piece looks like when you're done. So thank you for submitting that. Our third piece today is going to be coming to us from Tragic Comical Hand, who has drawn a dragon bird from Legend of Korra and is asking about how to color it. So the first thing is I threw down just some basic flat shapes of color so that I could have a base for where it is. I separated the line art to a different layer, but I didn't clean it up or anything. So this is just the pencil sketch converted over to a vector. But I've laid down some flat areas of color, and I have them separated on 3 different layers because what we're going to do is we're going to play around with some of the effects. Now, if you're using Photoshop, you can use blending options to create sort of glowing effects both inside and outside the piece. And you can play around with the opacity and with the light and all the rest of that, but you can make it seem as though it's glowing. And this is a very useful tool if you want to make in-piece light objects. So if you have something that's supposed to be a light source in piece, you can actually make it a light source using these blending options and give it lumosity, which really helps out. So what I did after that is I simply used that as the light source for where I was drawing the lights and shadows for this piece. And I went through and I highlighted the areas based on those highlights as the light sources. And the areas that are furthest away from the mane of the dragon bird or its wings or its tail are in shadow. And again, I am very much an advocate of using colored shadows. Lights and darks can be achieved best when they are used either with complementary colors or with a darker shade of the same color. So here I've made shadows using a little bit of purple because they're in contrast to the yellow flames of the dragon bird. And then after I went through and I made all of the effects and the highlights and the shades that I wanted, and I blended them out using the Gaussian blur, I flattened the image and then went through again and added some layers of both yellow and purple over the top with an opacity layer, and then played around with the levels to bring up the final piece here. And this really demonstrates that you can create some really cool glowing effects with Photoshop, and it's definitely worth looking into if you're looking at incorporating a light source in the piece. Thank you so much for your submission, Tragic Comical Hand, and I hope to see the final version of this once you're done with it. So our next two pieces are going to be sort of an advice column more than a critique, so to speak. So Crown Clown on the art advice was asking about color harmonies and discords, and also about color psychology. So I've taken the liberty of drawing this line art very quickly, and I'm just going to go through and kind of discuss some of the ways that color can interact with other colors and some of the psychology behind colors real quickly. So for our first variation, here I'm using primary colors. We're using tints of yellow, red, and blue to create this piece. And when you use sort of pastel colors like this, it gives everything a lighter feel. It feels more open and more free and younger, which is why you see blue and pink used a lot for baby colors. It shows a different kind of feel. It's very light, and it makes the piece feel very youthful. For our next variation, I went the opposite route. Here, I'm using darker colors. Primarily, I'm focusing on reds and blacks, and you can see that even though the character has not changed, the feel of the piece is very different. Darkness provides more of an aged feel, or more of a mysterious kind of feel, and because of that, it actually makes the piece seem a little smaller. Dark things seem to be more confined and more secretive than lighter tints. Here, I've created a color discord. Specifically, I'm picking colors that aren't going to work very well together and that are going to produce a jarring effect. For example, the mint of the hair clashes audibly with the magenta on the trim on the dress. The blue dress counteracts the orange ribbon. We're creating areas of high contrast. Now, contrasting colors attract the attention, as I was talking about earlier. But when you have areas of high contrasting colors combined with other high contrasting colors, it creates what's called a color discord. It creates tension, it creates a little bit of a strained feeling, but it also creates an exciting feeling. So discordant colors are exciting, and these might be color schemes that you might want to consider for characters that are to be noticed. They're supposed to be seen and heard, whereas harmonious colors kind of fade more into the background. So for this piece, all of the colors are in perfect harmony. We have the green on the eyes counteracted by the red of the rose and of the hair. We have purple gloves counteracted by this yellow sash. And again, these are areas of high contrast, but they flow together because those colors are actually analogous to the main color, which is orange and red. So orange, in this particular case, has both elements of red and yellow, both of which are present. It creates a sort of balanced feeling between the colors in the piece because everything has its counter color and everything has its analogous color that sits next to it on the color wheel. So that's the basics of color theory. There is, of course, a great deal more to it than that, but these are the sorts of things that you can think about while you're doing your pieces, and it should help you create character design that allows diverse feeling. Thank you so much for your question, Crown Clown, and I hope that this helps you. Our next question comes from IDK underscore A underscore good name, who's asking about how to draw hands. Now, I freely admit hands can be somewhat complicated. I know it's something that a lot of artists struggle with. So I'll show you what I do, and hopefully that'll help. So when I'm drawing a hand, first thing, you have reference right at the end of your wrist. There's no reason for you not to use reference. But what I do is I always start with the palm shape, which is kind of a box. Kind of a weirdly shaped box. Trying to just get the shape in. There we go. Shape of the palm. Then you're going to put in just basic guidelines for where you want the fingers. I find it helps to put in the joints so that you know where the bends are. That way you don't have to worry so much about like the fingers bending weirdly. So got that one there. That there. And I'm just kind of roughing in the shapes. Doesn't have to be perfect right now. This is just kind of to get an idea of where everything is. That bends like that. So once you get the fingers kind of blocked in, you can go in and sort of add shapes for the fingers so that you know the solid shape. And this is the important part. You need to show where they overlap. Block in some of the big major shapes of the hand, like the palm of the hand, some of the crinkle lines, and so on. And there's your underdrawing. And then, I'm just going to select a different color here. You're going to just go over the top of that and just kind of refine it in. Now, if you were doing this traditionally, you'd be doing exactly the same thing. You just start with an underdrawing using your reference and then just kind of build it in. And, take your time with it, because the thing about hands is that we see them every day, so we notice when they're weird or wrong. If you're not good at something as an artist, that's the thing that you need to draw the most, You need to get in there and just work on it, because the fact is, I hate to say it, but, you're not going to get better at it unless you practice. And if it's hard and if it's something you don't like to draw, those are the things that you have to practice the most, because obviously you're going to be drawing the stuff you like a lot more than the stuff you don't like. Go in again, put it in black, and actually put it on a new layer this time. But if I go in, I can now just go over the outline here. And now that I've got it all blocked out, just run right in with my black and put in the final lines. There we go. If we turn that off, we got ourselves a hand. So I hope you found that helpful. It, again, just requires practice. You just need to kind of model a little bit for yourself, take pictures, use reference. There's absolutely no shame whatsoever in using reference as an artist. All the great artists do it. And in terms of drawing hands, you've got one on the end of your wrist, so you can take a picture of it from whatever angle you need, or have somebody else take a picture of it in the position that you need. And what's great about that is that then you own that reference image and you don't need to worry about paying anything for it. So anyway, I hope that helped you, and thanks for the question. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that episode, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you would like to submit some of your work for Creant Critique, you can do so on our Reddit at r/CreantWorld using the flair Creant Critique. If you have any feedback or any questions about anything we covered, you can put that in the comment section down below. But until next time, I'll see you later.